The later stages of dementia are often where families begin asking a different type of question. How much longer can I safely do this on my own? Because as dementia progresses, it's not just memory that changes. Communication changes, independence changes, safety changes, and eventually the amount of hands-on care someone needs changes also. In part 1, we talked about the earlier stages and the importance of planning while your loved one can still participate in those conversations. Now, we're moving into the later stages, and I'm going to show you what's changing, what families often misunderstand at each stage, and how your caregiving needs to adapt for each stage as well. Hi, for those of you new here, I'm Dr. Sinclair, a neuropsychologist, dementia care specialist, and founder of the Confident Caregiver Academy, where I help loving care partners like you care for yourselves and your loved ones with dementia. Let's jump on in and let's start with stage 5, the stage of daily need. During this stage, your person can no longer manage daily life safely without consistent support. They may become confused about the date, the season, or even the location. They may choose an outfit that does not match the weather. They may need reminders or assistance with bathing, grooming, meals, medications, and daily routines. The care partner is no longer checking in occasionally. Caregiving has fully become central to daily life. What is happening in the brain? Your person with dementia is losing access to more complex self-directed behaviors. So initiation, that means getting a task started, may start to decline for them. This is important for you to know because a lot of care partners frequently at this stage interpret that as unwillingness or laziness. You may start even saying things like, "Why won't you get up and shower?" or "Get up and go get something to eat." But showering or preparing a meal requires the brain to initiate the action, hold the goal in mind, sequence all of the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, and adapt to any sort of unexpected changes. When frontal lobe and executive functioning networks are impaired, your person with dementia may sit still there and not initiate a task despite being able to physically do the task. So this is not a conscious refusal. Their brain is actually struggling to get moving, to get the task going. What families often misunderstand at this stage. I often see families give very broad instructions. So they'll say things like, "Go get ready," or "Take a shower," or "Go get dressed." Those sound like really simple directives to you and to me, but to a damaged brain, that's cognitively enormous. The care partner then repeats the same instruction again, and this time more loudly and with more frustration. But louder does not mean simpler. Okay, so here's what you can do instead, guys. Break the task into the smallest useful step. So instead of a massive task like "Go get dressed," you can try something like, "Let's put your shirt on. Let's put your socks on." Instead of asking 5 questions, do you want to shower now? Which towel do you want to use? How hot do you want the water? Etc. Right? You're now going to reduce choices. You're going to offer some visual clues. So you may say, "Would you like to put your shirt on?" while mimicking putting on a shirt. Okay, you're giving your loved one an opportunity for their brain to understand what you're trying to say. This is also where caregiver burnout becomes a serious risk, not because you're weak, care partners, not because you're failing in some way, but because the demands of caregiving significantly increase at this stage. So if your entire care plan depends on one exhausted person never becoming sick, overwhelmed, unavailable, you do not have a sustainable care plan. Let's begin building that support before you're in a crisis. And I know for many of you, you don't have a lot of supports. But for some of you, you do have friends who you can call on to help you. Or maybe your loved ones' friends who want to help you but just don't know how and you've not asked. Maybe there's clergy who can help. Maybe there's a companion that you can hire to help you so that you can go and run errands and they can sit in and take care or watch your loved one with dementia. Is it the high school student who lives down the block? Is it the college student who's home for summer? Let's start brainstorming who a few of those additional people can be. And I know for some of you that's not even feasible, but for some of you it is. Let's start that brainstorming now, not when you're in a crisis. Stage 6, the stage of ambiguous loss. In previous stages, your person usually still recognizes the people closest to them. But by this stage, that recognition may become unreliable. And this creates one of the most painful misunderstandings in dementia care. During stage 6, there may be severe memory loss, greater disorientation, changes in sleep, wandering, paranoia, agitation, resistance to care, and difficulty recognizing familiar people. Your mother may ask for her mother. Your husband may insist that he needs to go home while sitting in the house you've shared for 30 years. Your father may look directly at you, directly in your eyes, and ask, "Who are you?" Oh my gosh, that's so sad, right? For families, this can feel like the relationship itself has disappeared. This is ambiguous loss. The person you love is still physically present, but important parts of the relationship are changing or inaccessible to them. What is happening in the brain? Autobiographical memory, the organized story of who we are, where we are in our lives, and how other people fit into that story, has become severely damaged for your person at this stage. The brain may no longer correctly place your person in the present moment. When your mother says she needs to go home, for example, she may not be referring to her current address. Home may represent her childhood home, an earlier chapter in her life, or simply an emotional need that she has right now to feel safe. When your husband does not recognize you as his wife, he may be experiencing an older version of himself, one form before he met you. Trying to force him into the correct year may not work because he just cannot reliably access that part of his timeline. But here's what remains critically important that I want all of you care partners to know. Factual recognition and emotional recognition are not the same thing. Okay? Your person may not be able to retrieve your name or the relationship they have with you, but they will still be able to respond to the emotional experience that you create for them. They may not know, "This is my daughter Camille," but their nervous system may still register, I don't know the name, but she feels safe to me. Okay? What families often misunderstand at this stage. Unfortunately, families often demand recognition. "Mom, you know who I am. Come on, I'm your daughter. I'm your husband. We've been married for 40 years. The care partner is trying to recover the relationship by making those statements, but the demand often leaves your person very frightened because a stranger is insisting on an intimacy that they just can't understand. At this stage, I also see a lot of families attempt to correct delusions or accusations. "I didn't steal your purse. Stop saying I stole your purse." Or, "This is your house." Or, "Your mom died 50 years ago." But the facts are only helpful when the brain can actually integrate them. If the brain cannot integrate the facts, which it can't at this stage, those responses just create fear for your person with dementia. What you can do instead: respond to the emotion instead of the facts. So if they say something like, "I need to go home," instead of saying "you are home," you're going to try to say instead, care partner, "You really want to feel at home? Tell me what you miss about home." Or you can say something like, "What do you need from home?" If they accuse you of stealing, you can say something like, "You're worried because you can't find it. Let's look together." If they don't recognize you, introduce yourself in a way that lowers pressure, that doesn't increase their fear. "Hi, I'm Camille. I'm here to spend some time with you because I hear you're a lot of fun." Do not, care partners, turn the interaction into a memory test. Your job is no longer to pull them into your current reality. Your job is to allow them to experience safety and allow their brain to just settle as much as possible around you. I can't move on from this stage without also warning you of something. Behavioral symptoms that you're going to see at this stage, so all of those problem behaviors at this stage, they are not evidence that your loved one has become bad or manipulative or ungrateful. As dementia advances, damage affects areas involved in language, reasoning, problem solving, sensory processing, so how things feel against their skin, for example. They may hallucinate or start having strange, bizarre beliefs. The behavior that you're going to encounter is a form of communication because their brain is losing the ability to properly communicate with you. Eventually, that cognitive loss becomes accompanied by profound physical decline. But even in the final stage, your presence is still critical. Stage 7, the final stage. At this stage, verbal communication may become very limited or disappear altogether. Your person may lose the ability to walk independently, sit upright, eat safely, or even control bodily functions. They are going to require extensive or complete assistance with daily care at this stage. The focus increasingly shifts toward comfort, dignity, safety, and a better quality of life. What is happening in the brain? Dementia is not only a disorder of memory, as you know. The brain coordinates movement, swallowing, posture, communication, attention, and countless functions that keep the body operating. So, as the disease becomes widespread, the person loses the neurological ability to coordinate these bodily functions. This is why advanced dementia is a terminal condition. The brain is gradually becoming unable to direct the body in what to do. What families often get wrong at this stage, they assume that because the person cannot speak, that they cannot experience anything meaningful. Or they feel that sitting beside the person no longer matters because there's no visible conversation or recognition. But an inability to express a response does not prove an absence of the experience. We should never assume that silence means nothing is reaching them. It absolutely is. Here's what you can do during this stage. Let your care become sensory, relational, and simple. What I mean by that is you can speak calmly to your person. You can explain what you're going to do before you touch them, even though they can't reciprocate conversation. You can sing to them or still play familiar music, even if they can't engage with it. You can offer gentle contact when it's welcomed. You can absolutely try to continue to protect their dignity during personal care and watch their face for subtle signs of comfort or pain. Comfort will look like them leaning into you as you're brushing their hair, and pain can look like them wincing or recoiling from you as you're doing something. And this is the time to begin conversations about palliative care and hospice. In fact, actually, much earlier would have been the best time, but that's okay. Comfort-focused care is not you abandoning your loved one with dementia. I know that that's a familiar stigma that's out there. It's about recognizing what your person with dementia needs at this stage. Comfort care does not mean you're giving up. It means that you are giving them a better quality of life, dignity, and care during a very vulnerable time for them. Late stage caregiving is an intensive type of care focused on preserving their quality of life and their dignity. Your presence at this time still matters. Your tone of voice still matters. Your gentleness still matters. Your loved one may no longer be able to tell you that they feel safe or they're feeling your touch, but they absolutely are still experiencing it. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's video, it's this. You are not caring for the same brain you cared for 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 2 years ago. And that means successful caregiving cannot stay exactly the same way either. The biggest mistake is not failing to say the perfect words. It's continuing to ask a changing brain to perform abilities it can no longer perform. As the disease progresses, your job becomes simplifying, cueing, modeling, adapting for them. Later, it becomes less about helping the person understand the world and instead about helping them to feel safe in the world. So let me know in the comments below which stage your loved one is in And what change has been the hardest for you to adapt to, the hardest for you to even understand? Your comments help to inform future videos that I make, so go ahead and feel free to share that below. And if you need more than information, if you need a clear roadmap, practical guidance with what to do as your loved one progresses, then go ahead and schedule a call with me below to learn more about the Confident Caregiver Academy. We have a few more spots open in our next cohort, and I'd love for one of those spots to go to you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.